Students hoping to attend university in Ontario could soon have trouble finding a spot. A new report from the Council of Ontario Universities says if the province doesn't boost funding, 100,000 students may be unable to enroll in the program that they want to by 2030. Steve Orsini is the president and the CEO of the Council of Ontario Universities. He's our guest this morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
You've described it as Ontario universities currently facing a perfect storm, from an ongoing tuition freeze to the federal government capping international students. So what are the main factors affecting the bottom line of universities? Why are they struggling?
Well, I'm just going to note that give acknowledgement to the province who had the foresight to appoint an expert panel a year ago to report on the financial health of Ontario universities, and they came up with a number of key findings. First, Ontario universities are the lowest funded per student in the country by a large margin. Two, Ontario universities are among the most efficient in the country, but there's more to do, and we have a plan to do that. But they also acknowledge that after 15 years of no funding increases per student, that the province had to inject a significant funding boost of over 15% in the first year, then matching inflation in the out years. The province did respond, and we're appreciative of that funds, but they only funded 3% in the first year. So universities have significant financial challenges in maintaining spots for Ontario students.
I want to ask you about life on campus right now, living in the gap of some of this wage trouble the cost trouble that's happening at universities. In February, Ontario announced temporary funding. This was to stabilize universities and colleges who said we need help. So the government provided $1.3 billion over the next 3 years. And last year, Ontario's own panel on university funding, I think that's what you're referring to, called for $2.5 billion. Students right now are about to wrap up their first semester. So how is life on campus being affected by this gap in funding?
Well, you mentioned it earlier. We have a perfect storm. Funding's not keeping up with inflation and student needs. Two, the federal government imposed a cap on international students, and that's impacted universities by more than $300 million this year alone. And universities last year, there was 10 universities with more than $300 million in deficits. So we're facing extreme financial pressures when the needs for students have never been higher post-pandemic. Our students need all the supports, whether it's counseling, coaching, mental health, and universities are scrambling to find the resources needed to make sure students have the supports they need to be successful.
We started this interview by telling people that there could be a risk of Ontario student or people wanting to study in Ontario finding a spot at universities. Explain how that's related back to funding.
Well, most people have heard about the federal cap on international students. What most people don't know is that there's a funding cap on domestic students that hasn't changed since 2016. Every year we see a growing demand from Ontario high school students to attend an Ontario university. Last 4 years, we had a jump of 12% of Ontario high school students wanting to attend Ontario University. Universities have been trying to accommodate that demand. There's about 28,000 Ontario students above this funding cap. Universities won't be able to sustain that with the current funding levels. And we know from the province's own forecast that there'll be another 18% of additional Ontario high school students wanting to apply to Ontario University. We'll have up to 100,000 Ontario high school students that may not find a spot in the program of their choice.
So which are the programs most at risk?
Well, it's a high demand ones. We've seen them in all areas of programming. We know that the economy needs skilled talent to grow and prosper. Universities are offering those programs to those students, and we see growing demand. We're seeing demand from students that want careers with high employment rates and high earning rates.
Sure.
It could be in technology, could be in medical, it could be in sciences, it could be in planning to help build our urban infrastructure and housing. There's all these programs that we're offering where there's student demand, but because of the funding cap, we can't enroll those students. And what that does, it increases anxiety. Students are already worried about finding a career. They now have to worry about, can they get a spot in a program of their choice?
It adds to stress for sure. Steve Orsini, I want to thank you for joining us, President and CEO of the Council of Ontario Universities.
Thank you.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.